Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back.
We don't have an official name of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe you guys can help us come up with it, but
I was just thinking the Borges podcast.
I love it. What was it before?
Yeah, let's not go back. We're rebranding.
Well, if you guys didn't know, we did have a podcast called Passionate Conversations on a Casual Level, where we dove into a lot of things.
This was 2 years ago. That stemmed around January time.
Yeah.
So January seems to be like a common theme in our life where we feel inspired.
It's a rebirth.
Rebirth. I love that. Yeah. So 2 years ago, we started that podcast. We did it for about a year, and it was really time consuming. We loved it. Honestly,
yeah. Loved every moment of it.
Yes.
Every time.
It forced us to get together and connect.
Yeah.
But it was very, very time consuming while also trying to continue to build and establish the team.
Yeah.
So for those that don't,
the biggest challenge.
Yeah. For those that are really new to us and finding our podcast, we do run a real estate team. Justin had started the team. How many years has it been now?
Yeah, I think we started in 2019, 2020 range, and just been growing like crazy ever since 2 years ago.
Yeah, so we kind of started the podcast, and then I joined the team around that same time,
that we were concluding the podcast.
Yeah, right, that we were concluding the podcast. And so, yeah, a lot has changed.
It's been a journey, that's for sure. I think working together has been a challenge of its own, and we'll dive into that. But It's been a beautiful thing. But as of recent, have just felt super called to this and feel like we wanted to get back to this.
Yeah, we're so excited. We are in a new office space. We're going to be curating the office space and really making this a very welcoming and also moody, chill vibe for when we record the podcast. And this is something new. Before it was audio only, so now we have video and audio.
Yeah, so if you're we're over here,
yeah,
it's kind of awkward. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. But the next time, hopefully, you're able to see. We'll have some really cool artwork. But if we waited till everything was perfect, we probably would
never start. Exactly.
So let's dive right in. We kind of hinted at the things we've been up to, but what, for those that were following along our journey, what has happened? We hired an operations manager for the team. That was huge.
Well, let's start with our kids, right?
Okay.
So our daughter Lily is 8 now, and our son Camden is about to be 4 next month. Mm-hmm. So, I think when we were doing this 2 years ago, obviously 6 and 1.5, or 6 and 2, just totally different dynamic now.
Totally. They're just thinking back on that time, it's so different.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we used to do is we'd record at night at our house because we had children that slept. Now we have the almost 4-year-old Camden who will, I think most of the days he'll stay up later than us.
During the week, because they basically have him take a nap at school.
Yeah.
He will go to sleep 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Now we have to say, let's turn off the TV, and then he goes to sleep basically at the same time we do. So if we want to stay up and watch a little bit, he's up too. So we're still navigating bedtime routine with him. He was around the holidays, getting in his own bed, and that was so exciting. I thought we hit a great milestone there.
Yeah.
And then he's definitely getting back to his ways of staying up super late. But Lily, on the other hand, she'll go to bed in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Lily, she has to be up early to do her workouts. Oh my gosh. So I wake up at 4:30.
Yeah.
Get into the garage to do my workouts by 5-ish. And usually, you're kind of getting up around 5:30 time, would you say?
Not as of recently.
Okay.
I feel I've been kind of... have we not been dealing with so much in January? My gosh,
Yeah.
which we'll get into like everything that's gone on this past month. But yeah, I'm really proud of Lily. I was just telling a friend that she is very determined to get up and get her workout in and stretch, and she's doing this all to get better at gymnastics. And
Yeah.
we don't tell her you got to do this. Like, you know, she literally will get up and like go downstairs. She has an air track set up. She puts on her YouTube tutorial.
Yeah, I
where
should find that for her.
She did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because first she was just doing stretching, and then I was kind of like, well, what if you can do some strength training too? And I
Yeah.
found this little girl on YouTube that does like just 15 minutes, like push-ups, sit-ups,
Okay.
like all of the calisthenic type things that
Yeah.
can make you stronger without like weights. Kids obviously shouldn't lift weights, so it's all body weight workouts. So
Yeah.
it's all super healthy.
Yeah, so it's been really, for me, seeing her so determined and like her not needing our validation, you know, like she's just, this is her thing, she's owning it. And today she actually gave herself the day off.
Yeah.
And so
And she's like, yeah, man, I take days off on Friday. I'm like, oh, good for you. Do you take any other days? No, just Friday. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know when this got established, but
she's
character.
Yeah. So just to go full circle, we don't need to record at night anymore like we used to.
Yeah.
Now we have some time during the day, and we're recording from our office. So
in Pasadena, which we live.
Yes, that's been another big change. We are
took a big leap of faith, and actually wasn't really our choice, but our brokerage failed to kind of press forward, and they needed to shut down. So we found a new home with EXP, and with that, we obviously, or not obviously, but we've had some amazing growth, and
Yes.
we're super excited about what we've found with EXP. And now our office is 5 minutes from our current house.
Yes, I am in sort of like workout gear. That's why I look like this.
And she said, hey, we're going to launch the podcast. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to show. No, I'm just kidding. I had an appointment.
Yeah, I was like, oh, great. This looks funny.
She didn't get the memo, you know?
No, but yeah, it is really nice that we are within, I don't know, 5 mile radius of like office, home, and work.
Yeah, in Old Town. We're in Old Town.
And
so.
I work out, like my studio's in Old Town, so it's been really, really nice.
Super nice. But yeah, moving on to professional, we moved here.
Yes.
We did hire last February our operations manager, which was a huge success and has been working out really well.
Yeah, and that was honestly like something that we didn't even think we could. It felt like a lot to like a big commitment.
Yeah, committing to employing someone and being responsible for their salary.
We weren't sure if we could do it. I just remember feeling like the team is growing and like just feeling like I was wearing a lot of different hats for the team. And to be completely transparent, like I don't come from the real estate world. And I am able to kind of shift and like support where I need, but I knew that like this team needs someone that is like in it and is able to really support like hands on. And so it was really cool to be able to interview like different people. And
yeah, that whole process was scary.
It was scary, and also just like seeing people's journeys and think like, wow, you got a degree and like you want to work with us, like wow.
We made it.
Yeah, I was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. But no, I'm really happy where we are, and just as we're continuing to grow, there's like more changes to come, but yeah, I feel like it's all kind of a natural evolution. But
yeah, and we have now 16 agents that are a part of the Borges real estate team, and it's been growing. I think we got up to 20 or 19 at one point and then contract down. And so, it's always super important. Like one of the biggest things that we really believe in is like we're pouring intentions into teammates and we want them to succeed. And so there's a high level of accountability that goes into it. And so it's not for everyone. It's always what we tell people. And we really mean that in a way of like, hey, if you're not going to be okay with us holding you accountable, then we might not work out.
Yeah. And I think sort of at the end of when we were doing this podcast, we were definitely talking about how you and I learned to work together.
Yeah.
And the podcast was really the first project that we worked together on, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? And like just learning each other's, roles, and we had expectations of one another, and I feel like we've kind of navigated that. And there's been also a lot of navigating through the business. Like, what would you say are some of the sort of the highs and like challenges with now working together?
Well, the highs are obviously when we're performing at a high level.
Yeah.
We're flowing, we're getting things done, and just like everything's clicking. And the lows are just like we can't turn it off. I think that was the biggest thing.
That was
huge. It was a big challenge for us to get home and turn off the constant of the team.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've actually done really good at overcoming that.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
No.
I feel that we had to redefine our roles. Like,
it's constant.
It's constantly, yeah. But I guess I'm talking more of like on a sort of like beyond just like our titles, like more so like feminine role and like a masculine role. And like when we are at home, like I thrive when I'm in more of a feminine role, and like you're in a masculine role. And so it's hard to be having like, for me, sort of more of a masculine like role with.
Can you give some examples of that? Because I now understand this, but if you're watching and you're like, what is she talking about? Yeah, please.
So so the masculine and the feminine are just, they're not necessarily like woman and male. It's just like I feel like we all have feminine aspects and masculine aspects, and I feel like for the early part of my adulthood, I've operated in a very masculine way, and it's gotten me to where I am now. And I'm realizing that I'm in a position where I don't need to constantly be in a masculine role. I can actually let my guard down. And that's to me what masculinity is. It's a lot of doing energy.
So working, you're saying, like working like at a day job or any sort of work is masculine.
Not necessarily any sort of work. It's just more so the doing. So for me, like when I think about creativity, that is more feminine, right? Because you're more so just like surrendering and like allowing to yourself to receive like what you're feeling called to. So I've been writing for a while, and I cannot be in my masculine and write like in the way that I want. I have to be more in like feeling inspired. And so those are just some examples of like, to me, how I define the feminine and masculine.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
For sure.
But it's going to be hard to try and recap the last 2 years on the first episode. So we won't bore you with everything.
We'll reference back.
But another like really big high, I would say, is that we were able to take a month-long trip to Mexico and have it be like a working trip. So
that, by the way, was something I was very, very, very scared to do, if I'm being honest. And that's because how am I supposed to run a business if I'm not there? And there were plenty of moments where I was like, if I were only back home, I could do X, Y, and Z. But honestly, like it really proved to me that I can do that, and we can do that. So
why don't we kind of use this as an example of like how this came about? Like how, so
well, first off, your parents live in Mexico.
Yeah, they moved to Mexico. We helped them with prepping their home and selling it. And they left around the holidays a year ago. And so I had been sort of thinking about taking a trip to go visit them. And with summer was coming up, and I was kind of manifesting like it'd be so cool to be able to go somewhere for a month. And then I thought, oh my gosh, go visiting my mom, like we wouldn't have to pay to stay, like, so, um, just communicating it to you was like, whoa, I don't know how this is going to go over, and he's going to think I'm crazy, which you always think I'm crazy about things that you slowly start to also buy into.
And I've told you this is the like protective side of like, I have to protect this time. And yeah, there's a learning curve for me of like getting used to the idea. So in that case, you mentioned like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool to go for a month? And it was like, a month? Like, what about a week? Yeah, what about 10 days? A month?
Yeah.
So it was a shock.
And you were basically saying, you go and I'll meet you.
Yeah, you're going to be for 2 weeks, and then like I'll come, just to try and figure out like I got to hang back. But nonetheless, it took me probably 2 weeks to come around and said, you know what, like we're entrepreneurs for a reason. We run a business for a reason. Like we have to be able to take risk, and this is life. Like it's important to be able to do these sort of things, and you helped me to come to that conclusion for sure. Now that said, I'm not like, let's go for 2 months or 3 months, because it was stressful. It was.
I think that's the part of like being an entrepreneur and like running your own business and learning how to, before you go on a trip, like what are the things that you should be communicating and delegating. And there wasn't a day on the trip that you weren't working.
Yeah.
Like
at least for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. And like I was involved in meetings, but like you're definitely a lot more forward facing when it comes to the hands-on support for the team, and clients, so like I think if we were to take that long of a trip again, like we really need to talk about like how would it feel to actually like not work for the whole month, and not saying not every single day, but maybe you'll have like 2 or 3 days, where you can actually enjoy, like you are on vacation.
Yeah, and I enjoyed myself, so
yeah.
certainly. But yeah, there were certain days where it was like, if I was only back home, or I feel like I should be. The guilt factor.
Yeah, and you have your coach who is able to kind of like set you up for that.
Yeah.
So just kind of the things that go into working really hard and like wanting to enjoy, and like knowing how there are ways that you need to go about it, and it doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
But switching gears onto a much heavier topic, we are, as I mentioned, in Pasadena, California, and it is right now February 7th that we're recording this, and literally a month to the day ago, we had a very tragic event here in Altadena, and also in the Palisades, but the one that we were most affected and the people of our community were most affected by was the Altadena Eaton Fire, and it just has been crazy. I mean, we fortunately did not lose our home, but there are so many that we know that did.
Yeah.
And it's just been devastating.
It's been rough. Like I never thought starting off the year would be,
oh my God,
would be evacuating on like a 15-minute notice. And literally we just decided like in 15 minutes, like we just looked out our window and saw just these all like red.
The whole entire sky was lit up, and
we were just like, and the winds were so crazy.
And I'll be the first one to say, like, when we got a call, like, hey, are you guys going to evacuate? I was like, evacuate? Wait, what? Come on. We're and because if you understood where we were on the map, you would be like, oh yeah, I get it, because we're just so far from the hillside. We're probably 3 to 4 miles away from the mountains. So I'm just thinking, if this started over here, there's no way. And so for the first 10-15 minutes, it was just kind of like, nah, I think we're good. And then our upstairs window actually has a northeast facing view, which is where the fire was. And the entire sky was lit up, and it was like
scary.
Okay,
it was scary. And
let's pack up.
Yeah, once we decided to pack up, thankfully I have family close by in Highland Park, and we knew we had somewhere to go if we needed to. And it was like, okay, let's go. I think we paced, just like still like deciding, are we really leaving? What do we take? Because I still thought like we're gonna leave, but we're gonna come right back, you know? So what do we take? And then our pets, like, it just was, you were like, okay, talking about our cat Toulouse. You're like, they're pretty, would you say pretty resilient?
In the moment, I was in the same mindset of like, our house is going to be fine. We'll be back. But you're like, no, we're bringing it.
There's no way.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Bringing him. He's
so
coming.
It was very hard, honestly, to fathom like what was happening. Like it just, for anyone who went through it, you'd have to go through it to know what I mean. But it just seems unreal, and you don't feel like you're really in danger. It feels like something out of a movie.
Honestly, for me, it felt like fight or flight.
Yeah,
I didn't have time to think. I couldn't even think. Like, what do I bring? Packing things. So we just packed up our some PJs. I packed up PJs. We got animals, and on the way out, we saw really like everything kind of up close. You saw a power line.
Yeah, one of the power lines overhead, like literally pulsated, and then like a pulse of energy, electricity dropped down.
So many cars out, a lot of ambulance.
And keep in mind, the wind was like insane. Like
it was like up to 100 miles an hour, right?
I mean, I was standing out there, and it was hard. You know, at times there was many trees that came down in our yard, like big branches came down in our yard.
On the way to my grandparents' house, there were trees,
several large trees down. So
it was just insane. Like I couldn't believe. And then that whole night, it was this app, you know, that they tell you to get. It's called Watch Duty, and it's like going off. And you're just like in anxiety mode.
So,
like,
and for context, we never watch the news. Like the news is like the furthest thing from us. And honestly, if your cousin didn't call us to tell us there was a fire, like we would have never known, because we just don't.
Yeah.
We don't. I don't have any news apps or anything.
No, we don't. Really, just like social media is where we like gather some information that we need to know. And then my mom, she had been sending me some things about the danger of like winds kind of throughout the day from her like news sources. So we had an idea, but we definitely didn't know like about the fire. So go on.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, so we go from never watching the news to being like completely obsessed with where's the fire, is it spreading, and you know, it definitely was one of the most stressful moments of my life, thinking, are we gonna lose our home?
Yes, and for the kids, they sensed our fear that night.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like Camden and Lily were just very clingy. They were like, are we going to be okay? And I just remember Lily asking me questions, and I just have to tell her, like, Lily, I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to answer your questions right now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even pretend to answer anything because I don't know. Like, we just have to get out the door.
Just kept saying, we're going to be safe.
Yeah, we're going to be safe. We're going to be together. And so I'm just very, very thankful for our family. And just, like that's what family is for, you know? But not everybody does have that, you know, like close by. So people I know like went to hotels.
Yeah.
And so we did stay with my grandparents for how long?
8 days, 7 or 8 days.
Yeah. And you would go back to the house.
Yeah, I was kind of obsessed because I was just, you know, for a day and a half, 2 days, the fire just kept advancing, closer and closer to our place. And so I was just obsessed with like, where's it at? I needed to know to have my sanity. And so it was intense.
Checking the house. So the next day, I had been chatting with some friends about like in our community, and I knew you were going back to the house, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what, like you need to bring more stuff. So my friends, were like, get your wedding ring, get all of your important documents. So you did bring that back.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
It was
such a crazy, crazy time that it's almost like unbelievable that that even happened. And then just thinking about the school community, and people actually losing their homes and just starting over. Like,
Yeah.
how do you even do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many families, so many. I think Altadena, over 6,000 homes have burned in Altadena, and there's literally only 80, I think 84 to 8,600 homes existed in
Yeah.
Altadena before. So,
Oh, wow.
we're talking massive destruction. The fire in the Palisades, I feel, was getting a lot of attention because of, celebrities' houses and mansions, and it's a very affluent area. Whereas Altadena, like, not a lot of people understand the actual destruction that took place, and just how many people have been displaced.
Yeah.
So,
And even coming home, it wasn't just one of those things where there was no more destruction. Like coming home and like the aftermath of, you just drive a few blocks and you're going to see a home that's been completely burned down. You're going to see cars that were just not, like, you could just tell, like, how did this happen? Like in blocks,
Yeah.
that there's homes and then one's just not there anymore,
yeah.
And that's been really hard to just witness. And I like to walk. That's like very important to me. And there's so much ash and toxins, and the city is just now like starting to clean up. But the kids' school, the main reason they've been out for almost a month is because they were doing a $2 million
Insurance cleanup.
Yeah, and just kind of like making sure
Mediating, to make sure that, because
yeah.
the structures that had burned are over 100 years old, and so they have lead, they have asbestos, they have all these materials that are hazardous, and so the ash is, it's not really safe to be breathing.
Right. And that was honestly really tough to like like start the year and try to be productive, and also have the kids 24/7.
Yeah.
And that was really hard as well. Like, I think you and I did a good job, like, while staying at my grandparents. Like, it could have been like, oh my gosh, what the hell? Like, I never thought we'd be there for that long. But we really were making it work. And my cousin, oh my gosh, she offered to babysit for the kids, so we were able to like try and come into the office. But then once we like said we're gonna come home, like people are moving on with their lives while the kids' school's still not open.
Yeah.
So
that was tough.
That was tough. They were tagging along on showings, and then you just thinking about like, oh, they've been watching so much all day long. Like, let's take them to Chuck E. Cheese. Let's take them jumping.
Yeah.
And then they were getting into it like a lot. So it was a lot of like, get them separated. Like, I was getting pretty upset every time I got emails from the school saying like, like they'd say they were opening on this day, and then we'd get an email from the school saying it's delayed, and I was just like on the verge of a breakdown.
Yeah. And I mean,
but I'm really happy that everything is safe before like going
for
back.
sure.
I think I just was like, I can't go on like this anymore.
Yeah, it was difficult because we had just ended Christmas break with the kids, and so they literally were in school for 2 days, and then this went down, and
that was another really like big high, I would say.
Yeah,
like,
Christmas break was awesome.
We took an amazing trip to Lake Tahoe for the holidays.
Yeah, it was great.
That was awesome. We can talk about that another time. Yeah. But like, so to come back from that and be hit with this is like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I mean, so many people dealing with this, and a lot of kids lost their schools, and they're still not in a position to go back. So yeah, I mean, our heart goes out to everyone affected. I mean, I feel we always talk about when we feel guilty, even like feeling bad for ourselves.
But there's a real thing about survivor's guilt. Um, and even though we didn't lose our house, like just to know people personally affected by this,
Yeah.
that did lose their house, and like there's nothing you can do, like there's nothing you can say. And so I just start to think about like how can I actually help? How can I, and so that's been really hard. It's just to, you know, try and be there, but also taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
Um, and but I will say, um, you know, I don't know how much the government has done or the city, but the community has really come together. Like that's what I did see was the community coming together,
100%.
doing their own cleanups, and like I've never been on the neighborhood app as much as I was on our neighborhood app, and that's honestly where I got most of my information was this neighborhood app. It wasn't the news. It was like
it was Ring, right?
It was Ring, yeah. And the neighbors like, saying, "Oh, it's they're giving out masks here," and just like all different sorts of updates. So really grateful for that app, but I'll probably have to snooze it now because it's just going back to the old like everybody's reporting anything.
Someone's dog's loose.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Yeah. So
we don't want to hear about this.
But something I think that people do want to hear is how it's impacted the market.
Yeah.
So you shed a little light on that.
It's been really interesting the effect it's had on the market because obviously I've just said that in our immediate market here, 6,000 plus homes and even more structures. So, we're talking about apartment buildings, we're talking about duplexes, triplexes, multifamily. So it's estimated around 10,000 people are actually displaced. And, how many homes are available and rentals are available? And
is that just from
that's just
Eaton
yeah.
Fire? So that's not even the Palisades.
No. And so, the first noticeable difference for me is we had a listing in Echo Park and it's a rental and it was just sitting. We had it up at a fair price, but that market was just dead. Mm-hmm. And literally 2 weeks after the fires, we had 6 showing requests, and every single one of them, or someone, whether either from the Palisades or from Altadena, and we rented it out almost immediately. So that was like, okay, there's definitely a ripple effect that's about to go down. And so, yeah, lots of people are in the market in Pasadena. And like I said, there's only so many houses for sale, right? So before this happened, we had a pretty healthy market where there was a good amount of inventory and not so many buyers. So the buyers had a lot of leverage and they could potentially negotiate and get prices down. Well, take 10,000 people, and I'm not saying all of them are looking to buy a house, but the 6,000 that were fortunate enough to own a house, they're now faced with options of, do we rebuild our house? And this is all in the context of how old are you? What does your plan look like?
That's really, really hard. Like, especially for people that have paid off their house. Yeah. Right. And just how long is this rebuild process going to take? Like they said 3 to 5 years, but I'm hearing maybe even longer than that.
Yeah, it's kind of a who knows at this point because, Altadena is under county jurisdiction. So
and we didn't even mention the insurance aspect of it. Just how insurance companies were canceling.
Yeah, a lot of insurance companies were canceling before, and it's very sad, and it happened to us. So we know that we know that that's a real thing that was happening. Yeah. And I can go into this, but the state of California has prevented insurance companies from raising their premiums over time, and so that's why so many companies have left and canceled and figured out ways to get out. And so, but going back to the market, I mean, now we're seeing, you know, great houses hit the market, but each one of them has 4 or 5, 6, you know, 7 cash offers, and almost every one of them are from someone who lost their home in the fires. And I expect that, you know, right now we have, I can only guess, but I would say maybe 10% of the people that have lost their home have actually come to grips and have processed and made a real decision on whether they're going to, and I would say less than 10% have decided whether they're going to build or not, but they've at least chosen to, we're going to go out and rent a place for 6 months and evaluate the market, or we're going to go ahead and buy something in a year, or we're going to, instead of using our insurance money to rent a place, we're going to buy a place now.
Right.
And you know, there's so many different factors with the insurance companies because they have a rental allowance, and essentially it's supposed to be, if your current house that burned down, what was the kind of replacement rent for that? What would that house have rented for? And that is what they would then get. So back to the 10% have really processed this and jumped into the market, and you know, and maybe that number is way high. But what we're probably going to be seeing in the coming days is more and more people processing this, more and more people seeing the rental market go up and up and up, because when there's no supply and a huge demand, there's nowhere for the prices to go but up.
Right. And like when you think about it, these people haven't rented in years. So
well,
like
they're so used to their curated, beautiful home that they've made their own for the most part.
And now they're,
or they grew up in,
into someone else's sort of, you know, home, and having other tenants maybe nearby, and then your animals, and just, so that part is definitely really really sad. And then it's expensive, like you said.
It's very expensive.
So like, think about, like, I'm giving my money away and I'm not even that satisfied. Like, so I mean, I think everyone's kind of processing and navigating and grieving this differently. Like, there is no one right way. I've kind of seen all different options being used right now.
And I will say, if you're out there and you're looking at renting, there's no judgment whether you rent or buy. Like, you got to do what's right for you. But you know, reach out to us. We will help you to put together like a rental application, as far as like a rental profile, so that you can really present yourself in the best way. I mean, it's probably been years since a lot of folks have even thought about applying, you know, for a rental. And so really, we can help you to build that and communicate, because in the rental game, so many of the agents are going to represent both the seller and the buyer. That's just really how it is. We can help advocate for you. You know, we won't represent you just because it would hurt your chances to get a home in the rental market, but we can sure point you in the right direction. So if you need any advice on that, we're here.
Awesome. And I also want to touch on sort of the I know for me, a lot of come up, and like, I'm valuing things that I didn't necessarily value as much before, like community and
me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I really value you now. And so for me, it's really community and feeling very like tied into my home. And so I'm still navigating that. That's brought up a lot. But I'm curious, on your end, like anything that's kind of come up that you've learned, or like any lessons from all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just cliche, but the like, don't take things for granted. Like, there's just so many people. I hear story after story after story that, you know, I just grabbed a few things because I thought I was going to be back in the morning, and there's just nothing to go back to. And you know, like, being someone that's here in Los Angeles, California area, you just think, like, you see, you know, a natural disaster in Florida, or a hurricane or a tornado, and you know, of course we have earthquakes, but we haven't seen the big one that's really scary. But like, this was so real, and so intense. And I think the Eaton Canyon is the most destructive fire in history. Yeah. And for it to be so close to home, it just, if it could happen to us, I'm not here to spread fear, but it could happen, right?
Yeah, that like you never think it's gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
Or anywhere like near you.
Right. But there's some things that are out of your control.
Yeah, definitely. So taking a deep breath here.
Having sigh of relief. If you've been affected, again, and there's any way that we can help, we are here. We're trying to be resources. We've talked to many people. We've talked to many insurance people. We've talked to just folks that have lost their home. So like we're getting loads of information. So if there's any way that we can help, or you feel like there's a question that you don't know, the FEMA benefits, there's just so many things to look at. So
yeah. And with kind of the launch of the podcast, we'll be sharing additional information, and as we kind of hear things, we'll be definitely letting you guys know. But we are nonetheless very excited.
Very excited
to relaunch, and I'm feeling really good about it. We plan to release an episode weekly for you that you can listen to and watch.
Yeah. Let us know if you think of any ideas. We have some ideas we're going to be implementing. This area is going to be changing, but we are pretty pumped about.
We're going to be adding some music onto it.
Yeah.
But definitely follow us on social media.
Yes.
I'm at Brandy.Borges. And Justin, you are?
I don't know, but just search Justin Borges and you'll
LA Realtor, I believe.
Justin Borges, LA Realtor.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you all next time.
See ya.